Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're gonna crack open Will Storr's The Status Game.
Oh, yeah.
We've got excerpts ready, and trust me, this book is a total eye-opener.
Yeah.
It dives into this, hidden force that's driving so much of our lives, the need for status.
It really is amazing.
Yeah.
It's like we're all on this quest for social standing without even realizing it. And Storr really does a brilliant job at exposing all the, invisible strings that are pulling our behavior.
Okay, so Storr is claiming we're constantly playing these, status games, right?
Right.
What does that actually look like in real life, though? I mean, is it as simple as just, wanting a bigger house than your neighbor?
Oh, it goes so much deeper than that.
Right.
Storr argues that it's literally woven into our DNA, all the way back to, our tribal ancestors. Survival often depended on your position in the group back then, so.
Yeah, so even if we don't realize it, we're always sizing each other up.
Yeah.
Jockeying for position.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. Storr uses this wild example of a guy named Ben Gunn, a convicted child murderer, even in prison, stripped of everything. Gunn finds a twisted kind of status within the prison hierarchy.
Whoa.
It just shows how deeply this drive runs within us.
That's heavy stuff. So this isn't just about ego or wanting to feel important.
No.
This actually has an impact on our well-being.
Absolutely. Storr highlights research showing that a civil servant's position in the hierarchy literally predicted their health outcomes.
Wow.
It's not just about wealth or lifestyle. Their place on the ladder had a direct impact.
Okay, now that is kind of scary. It makes you realize just how much this game is actually affecting us, but is it really happening everywhere? I mean, Storr says we play these status games with friends, family, even online.
Oh, yeah, think about it. You're constantly navigating these dynamics, whether it's subtle cues in a meeting at work,
Right.
or who gets more likes on their latest post.
Right.
The symbols of status change, but the game remains the same.
Wow. When you put it that way, it really is everywhere. But hold on, if it's so ingrained, how come most of us don't even realize that we're playing?
That's where the dream of the mind comes in.
The dream of the mind.
Storr says our brains are master storytellers. They spin narratives that justify our status pursuits.
Okay.
We convince ourselves we're not just chasing clout.
Mm-hmm.
We're on some heroic quest.
So we're all basically living in a self-made movie where we're the star.
Precisely. And those stories can be powerful, even dangerous. Remember Elliot Rodger?
Elliot Rodger.
He felt completely rejected by the status games of his peers, and his distorted dream of the mind tragically led him down a path of violence.
Okay, that's chilling. It's like our own minds can trick us into thinking, we're more important,
Right.
more righteous, all to fuel this need for status.
Exactly.
So we're not just playing the game. We're constantly rewriting the rules to benefit ourselves.
Now you're getting it, and here's where it gets even trickier. The rules of this game are constantly shifting, making it even harder to keep up. What might be seen as confident in one circle could be totally obnoxious in another. Storr compares Western go-getter attitudes with Asian concepts of face
Okay.
to show just how differently these games can play out.
So, what works for climbing the corporate ladder in New York might backfire spectacularly if you try it in Tokyo.
Exactly.
How much for a universal rulebook?
Right. And these cultural clashes can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings.
Yeah.
What might seem like a harmless boast in one culture could be a major status blunder in another.
This is fascinating. But even with all these differences, there's one thing that seems pretty universal, right? This deep human need to belong.
Absolutely.
We all crave that acceptance from our chosen groups.
Think back to high school.
Oh.
That desperate need to fit in with the cool kids, adopting their lingo, their fashion, everything.
Ah.
It's all about proving you're worthy of belonging, even if it means suppressing parts of yourself.
Oh, high school, I'd rather not.
I know, but...
And it's true, though, even as adults, we're still looking for our tribe, right?
Yeah.
The people who get us and where we feel valued.
Exactly. And this is where Storr points out a subtle but important distinction.
Mm-hmm.
He says there are formal status games,
Okay.
the ones with clear hierarchies and titles, and then there are these informal ones that are constantly playing out beneath the surface.
So, even if you're technically the low person on the totem pole at work, you could still feel like a rock star if you nail that presentation and everyone's impressed.
Yes. Storr gives this example of a meeting where a junior employee ends up feeling on top of the world despite their official ranking.
Right.
It's all about those subtle power dynamics, those fleeting moments where you feel like you've won the room.
This is making me rethink every interaction I've ever had.
Right.
But it makes sense, though, those informal games can be just as intense,
Right.
if not more so than the ones with the fancy titles in the corner offices.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this constant dance of perception and subtle cues.
Exactly. And Sometimes those informal games can be even more cutthroat because the rules are so fluid and unspoken. It's all about reading the room, understanding the subtle cues, and knowing when to play your cards.
Oh man, the game is on.
And that's where the dark side of the status game can really take hold. Storr calls it the tyranny of the cousins.
Tyranny of the cousins.
Yeah, this intense pressure to conform.
Okay.
It can lead to some seriously messed up outcomes.
Okay, tyranny of the cousins. That sounds intense. Is he talking about like Thanksgiving dinner gone wrong?
Well, that could be his own kind of status game, can it? But Storr goes way deeper.
Okay.
Using historical examples like the Salem witch trials.
Right.
It shows how this need to belong, to be on the right side, can spiral into persecuting anyone deemed an outsider.
So it's like this primal fear of being kicked out of the tribe, but taken to like a terrifying extreme, and you're saying this is happening today?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Storr argues that the internet has become this breeding ground for the tyranny of the cousins. Think about cancel culture online pile-ons. The constant virtue signaling. It's like we're all walking on eggshells, terrified of saying the wrong thing and getting ostracized from our digital tribes.
It's true. It feels like the stakes are so much higher online.
Right.
One wrong tweet, and you could be labeled problematic for life, but isn't that just like part of how social media works?
Well, Storr argues it goes beyond just social media. It's about how these platforms exploit our deepest insecurities.
Okay.
The need for likes, followers, retweets, it all feeds into this insatiable hunger for status.
Right.
And that makes us vulnerable to manipulation.
So we're basically hooked on this digital drug of validation.
Too much.
And the platforms are the dealers knowing exactly which buttons to push to keep us coming back for more.
Exactly. And that's why Storr is so concerned about what he calls tightness.
Tightness.
Yeah. When the rules in the game become too rigid, the punishments for dissent too severe, it creates a breeding ground for tyranny. He uses the example of the Heaven's Gate cult, where members were willing to commit suicide based on the distorted reality created by their leader.
Wow. Okay. That is seriously dark.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how easily we can get sucked into these echo chambers, these tightly controlled worlds where critical thinking just goes out the window.
Right. And that's why Storr argues that awareness is key.
Good.
We have to be able to recognize when we're getting caught up in these games, when our need for belonging is clouding our judgment.
But how do we actually do that? If this status game is so ingrained, so subconscious, how do we become more aware it feels like we're fighting against our own wiring?
That's a million-dollar question Storr suggests, starting with introspection. Really questioning our motivations.
Okay.
Why are we doing what we're doing? Is it coming from a place of genuine passion, or are we just chasing external validation?
So like taking a step back and asking, am I doing this because it truly matters to me, or am I just trying to impress someone ouch that hits a little close to home?
We've all been there. But Storr doesn't just leave us with a bunch of warnings and cautionary tales.
Okay.
He also offers some pretty practical strategies for finding meaning and fulfillment outside the status game.
Oh.
He argues that true happiness comes from pursuing activities that transcend the pursuit of rank.
So like what kinds of things give me some hope here?
He suggests focusing on relationships, creativity, the pursuit of knowledge. It's about finding things that bring you joy and satisfaction, regardless of whether or not they boost your social standing.
So basically do things you love for the sake of doing them.
Yeah.
Not for the likes, the awards. The recognition sounds simple enough, but I imagine it's a lot harder to put into practice.
It takes effort, but it's worth it. Storr also points out that not all status games are bad.
Oh, wait, hold up. So there are good status games.
He highlights historical periods like the Renaissance,
Okay.
where success-based status games led to incredible advancements in art, science, and technology. Think about Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo. They were all driven by this intense desire to create, to innovate, to push boundaries.
So it's like channeling that competitive spirit into something that actually benefits humanity.
Exactly.
Instead of just trying to outdo each other with bigger houses and fancier cars.
Exactly. Storr argues that when the rules of the game are fair and the rewards are based on actual merit, it can inspire incredible progress.
This is making me rethink my whole perspective on ambition and achievement. It's not about stamping out that drive altogether.
Right.
It's about directing it towards something positive and meaningful. But how do we know if we're playing the right kind of status game?
That's a great question. Storr argues that success games are characterized by a focus on excellence, pushing the limits of what's possible.
Okay.
The rewards are based on tangible contributions and real-world impact, not just empty accolades.
So it's not about seeking validation for validation's sake. It's about genuinely wanting to make a difference to create something of lasting value.
Exactly.
Think about the scientists who dedicate their lives to curing diseases, or the artists who create works that inspire and move people.
Yeah.
They're playing a different kind of status game, one that ultimately benefits us all.
This has given me a whole new perspective on what it means to win in life. But even if we're playing the right game, it's still a game, right? It seems impossible to completely escape this need for status, this desire for recognition and validation.
It's definitely a challenge, but Storr's book isn't about resigning ourselves to the status quo.
Right.
It's about recognizing our agency, understanding the forces at play, and making conscious choices about how we participate in this game.
So it's not about becoming some kind of status-seeking robot,
All right.
but rather a more mindful player, aware of the traps and pitfalls.
Exactly. It's about questioning the rules, challenging the narratives, and finding ways to use our status however we define it for good.
It's a bit unsettling to realize just how much of our world is shaped by this status game.
It's like everywhere you look, from politics to entertainment to just scrolling through your social media feed.
Yeah, it's true. The status game is a powerful force. But here's the thing. Recognizing it is the first step to taking back control.
Okay.
Storr's book isn't meant to make us feel powerless.
Right.
It's about empowering us to make more conscious choices.
So instead of feeling trapped by this need for status,
Right.
we can actually use this knowledge to our advantage.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that in a practical sense? I mean, it's not like we can just flip a switch and suddenly stop caring what other people think.
Yeah, it's definitely a process, not a quick fix. Storr talks about the importance of cultivating self-awareness.
Okay.
It's about paying attention to those moments when you feel that urge to compare yourself to others, to seek external validation.
So like noticing when you feel that pang of envy when your coworker gets a promotion.
Exactly.
Or when someone else's vacation photos look way more glamorous than yours. It's been there.
We all have.
Yeah.
But by simply noticing those thoughts and feelings without judgment, you're already starting to loosen the grip of the status game.
Okay.
Storr also suggests finding sources of meaning and fulfillment outside of the traditional status markers.
So focusing on things that genuinely bring us joy and satisfaction, regardless of whether they impress other people or boost our social standing.
Exactly. Think about the things you loved to do as a child before the status game really took hold.
Yeah.
What were you passionate about? What made you feel truly alive?
For me, it was building things, creating stories, getting lost in my imagination. Somewhere along the way, I started to prioritize achievements and accolades over genuine passion.
That's a common experience.
Yeah.
But it's never too late to reconnect with those intrinsic motivations.
Yeah.
To rediscover those activities that nourish your soul. Storr argues that true happiness comes from pursuing those things, not from chasing external validation.
So it's about shifting our focus from what will people think of me to what truly matters to me. That's a powerful reframing.
It is, and it's not just about individual happiness.
Yeah.
Storr also believes that we can create a better world by fostering a culture that values genuine contribution over empty status symbols.
So like celebrating the scientists working tirelessly behind the scenes, not just the celebrities on the red carpet.
Exactly.
Shifting our attention to the people making a real difference regardless of their social standing.
Precisely. Storr argues that by shifting our values, we can create a society where people are motivated by a desire to make a positive impact, not just by the pursuit of fame and fortune.
That's a vision worth striving for. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the rules of the status game.
Right.
We can choose to participate in a way that aligns with our values to create a world where genuine connection and contribution are what truly matter.
Well said. It's about recognizing that we're not just pawns in this game.
Right.
We have agency.
Right.
We have a choice, and that's a powerful realization.
This deep dive has given me a lot to ponder. It's like I've been wearing these status-tinted glasses my whole life, and now I'm finally seeing the world with fresh eyes.
That's the beauty of exploring these ideas. It can be a real wake-up call.
Right.
A chance to step back
Right.
and examine the forces that shape our lives, our choices, even our sense of self.
It's definitely made me question some of my own motivations, but it's also left me feeling strangely hopeful, like I have more control than I realized.
That's the key takeaway I hope listeners get from this, understanding the status game doesn't mean giving up or becoming cynical.
Right.
It's about using this knowledge to create a more fulfilling life for yourself and a more just and equitable world for everyone.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the status game. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and maybe even a few aha moments along the way.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Remember, awareness is power. And now that you're aware of the status game, you can choose to play it differently. Thanks for listening.